after all of this, she should have been getting into Spelman. I mean, I'm just saying. Hi guys, welcome back to our channel, your favorite place for hauls, home decor, and all things homemaking. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. And for those of you returning, we appreciate your support. Now, I have to be honest. We've been holding out on a really big secret. And now it's time to tell you exactly what it is. And I have to tell you something. Peyton has been working so hard towards this. So hard. And now she's seeing the fruits of her labor. If you want to know how we got her from kindergarten to first grade in 4 months, stay tuned. I wanted to share this with you guys, not for bragging rights, because if you followed my channel for a long time, which we're coming in on 7.5 months now, you know that that's not what we're about. I am more so about empowering single parents, and whether it's single fathers or single mothers, to advocate for their children and to find the best way in their space and environment to be the best parent they can be. And that doesn't mean that I am the Bible, if you will, or I hold all of the answers, if you will, to being the best parent, because I make mistakes every single day and I own them, because there is no manual for being a parent, right? But I do feel that when I find little gems along the way, I feel like it's my responsibility to share it with you guys, because if you have a situation that is similar, you know that you are not alone. And if you follow us on Instagram, shameless plug, you'll know that when I'm having hard days, I let you guys know that. Every day is not a for the gram moment, right? Like sometimes as a parent, you just feel overwhelmed, especially with the way 2020 has just been a whole entire sham. And so now I feel like as we're closing out 2020, I think that a lot of the hard work that Peyton has put in and we have put in together, including her grandmother, we are now seeing the reward. And I think that this is something that really should be shared with you guys, because in the future, you know, if you see that your child is advanced in a certain area, that you don't just sit on it, because the reality is a teacher is not going to be the one to advocate for your child. Now, there will always be those teachers, 1 out of maybe every 30, that will go above and beyond and say, no, I am advocating for your child just as hard as you are. But especially in this climate, they are just trying to figure out how do they get through their day without pulling their hair out. And they're human, right? They may not have the time to really take the time, one-on-one time, or may not have the bandwidth to take that one-on-one time and really see if a child is gifted, or see if a child is advanced in a specific subject area, and it's the parent's responsibility to call it out. Right now, teachers are battling with, you know, being a hybrid teacher, doing virtual learning and in-person learning at the same time. That is a very challenging experience. And so, you know, I think that as parents, we have to call out when we do see an issue, whether it be that your child is not being challenged enough, or if your child is not getting the additional services that they need. So I will start back a little bit so that you guys can understand how we got to this place. So Peyton only went to school out here, has only been in school in a structured classroom in Atlanta. However, she did start preschool in New York, and she was homeschooled until she was about 24 months in New York. And I know you're thinking, oh, she was only homeschooled till she was 2, or what were you really doing? No, Peyton was homeschooled. Peyton had a full classroom. For those of you that used to follow us on Instagram, on our old page, she had a full classroom. She knew her numbers. She knew her alphabet from a very young age. She knew all her letter sounds. I mean, she was very advanced. And when she was in preschool, she was in a phenomenal preschool. And I love you, Betty, and I miss you terribly. I had to shout her out because she was amazing. And she definitely helped push the rigor in that area while she was with her. So when we moved to Atlanta, the rules changed, because in New York, the cutoff date for a child to be able to enter kindergarten is December 1st. However, in Atlanta, the cutoff date for a child to start kindergarten is they must turn 6 by September 1st. And in New York, you turn 6 by December 1st, you can enter kindergarten. So when we moved down here, we already knew that it was going to be a challenge, because what was going to end up happening, because she had already completed pre-K curriculum at her preschool, okay? So when she came down here, she was 4 years old, but she was finishing pre-K instead of starting pre-K at the age of 5. So she started pre-K early. When she turned 5, she was in kindergarten, and she went to kindergarten at Primrose, which was a phenomenal school as far as keeping her safe, creating a form of structure, teaching her manners, or continuing to teach her manners, and take it from where she ended in New York and really continue with the baton. It was a great experience there. However, we stopped school in March for obvious reasons because of quarantine. And at that point, I was still very lightly homeschooling her, because I was getting myself acclimated with the new role, with the new company when I moved down here. So I really wasn't doing as much as often as I was in New York. But I will tell you that she had a great experience at Primrose, but she maybe at that point was recognizing maybe 80 sight words or so, and that was with the work from home and then the work at school as well. When she ended school in March, I was homeschooling her full time, because they did not continue the curriculum. And actually I ended her tuition and her experience at Primrose once they closed down, and made the decision to just homeschool her fully for the rest of the school year, because it was already like end of March, and I was just gonna take her through to the end of June. So I was doing that while also working full-time. So of course this was a challenge, because I was building curriculum for her. I was teaching her how to read, which was something I never had done before, although I do, as you guys, some of you know, I do have my master's in education, but I have only taught 2nd and 3rd grade. I have not taught a child of this age. So just through a lot of YouTube videos and researching and finding different subscriptions such as education.com and Brainzy, I was pulling curriculum and building a curriculum for her weekly. As we fast forward now from the time in March where she was reading about 80+ sight words, and she could read certain sentences, by the time she started school in August, she was reading on a 3rd grade level. Now, when she first started, she was going to be going to a new school. This was a public school now, and the public school adheres to the guidelines of the district, which is that they have to turn 6 by September 1st in order for them to be accepted into kindergarten. Peyton was not going to be turning 6 until September 18th. So therefore, they were making her repeat kindergarten. No exceptions. This is what I was told. However, with a child that is reading on a 3rd grade level, who then enters kindergarten in a virtual classroom where they are teaching children how to recognize lowercase and uppercase letters, and the kids have no recognition of any letters of the alphabet. Some of them do not know how to write their name. Naturally, it was a very challenging situation to keep my child engaged, and to keep her from wanting to run around and play. She just was like, Mommy, I already know this stuff. Do I really need to be here? So, and pardon me for looking, because I do have some notes here, because I want to make sure that I give you guys as many gems as possible. So, a couple weeks before school started, when they reached out to me to confirm that I had registered and she would be attending, I spoke with the assistant principal, and this was the first thing that I want to let you guys know. When I spoke with the assistant principal and I asked her about grade acceleration opportunities, she said to me that that is not something that they do at the district, and that she would need to continue to go through, she would need to repeat kindergarten because she turned 6. She doesn't turn 6 by September 1st, no exceptions. She also included, thank God, she included the gifted specialist on this email and said, well, this is the summer. She may not respond, but I do want to let you know where we are with that. Maybe she can get into the gifted program for kindergarten. Well, when the gifted specialist did get back to me a couple weeks later, because she was off of vacation, she had a completely different conversation with me. She said the guidelines within our district is that grade acceleration is a possibility as long as either the teacher recommends it or if the parent requests for the child to be tested. Now, this is my first tip to you guys. Do not take no for an answer from one person. Always make sure you get a second and a third no. Because if I would have just taken the assistant principal's response of no, that's not allowed in this district, I would have just said, all right, well, I guess I gave it my all. She's going to have to go through kindergarten again and go through this elementary, quite frankly, curriculum that she's learned 2-3 years ago or 3+ years ago, okay? So luckily I spoke with the specialist. Anyway, we fast forward, she did have to start in kindergarten, but she had to go through a very rigorous process. And I want to share this with you guys because, again, for those of you that are thinking about doing it, if you think that your child is advanced, there is nothing wrong with asking. If they test and they don't meet the expectations, that's fine, but at least you know you tried. So anyway, I started the application process, which I had to wait 6 weeks after the first day of school to start it. School started mid-August, so therefore school, they would not allow her to begin testing until mid-October. When she started that, she had to do both the RI and an MI, which is a reading inventory and a math inventory. For both of them, the math inventory, she tested as an end of year second grader. And for reading inventory, she tested as an end of year third grader, high performing, or an average performing beginning year fourth grader. That's how she tested in her reading comprehension. Okay, so then after that, now they decided, okay, well, being that she tested that high, then yes, we would allow her to do something called a DRA. And the DRA is the, I think, developmental reading assessment, I believe that's what it's called. If it's not, I'll put the right thing up here. But the DRA, she was reading at, she tested as reading at an end of year second grade. Reason being is, long story short, it's when they have them read a book and then they ask them questions. Well, she was reading the book and this was all being done virtually, and there was a part in the book where she saw this picture of a giant jumping over water and he fell. And again, from a 6-year-old's perspective, the maturity level, she was so amazed by that. She kept talking about that and she thought that was so funny that she missed the overall purpose of the story. So she understood it, but she didn't relay it, and therefore they classified her as an end of year second grade high performing for the reading assessment, which is different from the reading inventory. Stick with me. So now, once she was able to complete that, now the official testing began. So I just want you to understand how many tests she went through, okay? So now we went through the RI, the MI, the DRA. Now we return back to in-person school. Now that she's in in-person schooling, they had to test her first for the gifted program to see if she was gifted, because a child can be gifted but not necessarily advanced, or a child might be advanced but not necessarily gifted. Gifted is where they're able to think of like creatively outside of the box. For example, a lot of the questions on the test might be having them see certain shapes and understanding if we were to fold that paper and cut out a circle, and when we open it back up, where would those circles fall? That's like tapping into the creative logic mind, versus like advanced might be, instead of in kindergarten where they may take 2 blocks and another 2 blocks, and then how many blocks do we have together, they might be doing something like 12 times 3. That's advanced versus gifted, okay? So they did test her for the gifted program. I believe you have to be at an 83 percentile, I believe, and Peyton has to be at, I think it was an 83 percentile, and Peyton was at like a 79 or an 80 percentile. So she fell in the 80th percentile. So she was not considered gifted, but then now, and that was about 3 tests, okay? over the course of like 2 weeks to complete, because they were giving it to her in different chunks. Then now they decided they were going to be giving her 2 more sets of tests. First, she had to do an end of year 2nd grade assessment, and she had to test above 50th percentile. If she did, then she would move on to being tested as an end of year kindergartner. And if she can test above the 93rd percentile, then she would be able to be considered for grade acceleration. Now, in the end of year 2nd grade assessment, there are 2 reading segments, 2 math segments, a science, a social studies segment. Okay? And some of them had to be split over the course of days. And then in the end of year kindergarten assessment, it was a little bit easier. It was I think 2 math and 2 reading, and that was it. But again, this testing from the RI, MI, DRA, gifted, end of year 2nd grade, end of year kindergarten, took about 6 weeks of her being tested 4 days a week. And she goes to school 4 days a week. So every single day she was being pulled out. You can only imagine the draining experience for a 6-year-old child to be tested that many times. It was very challenging for her. And there was a point, I think there was a point where one day she went in, she was not having it. And when they tried to give her that test, she literally balled up the test and said, I want to go back to my class, because she was missing this pumpkin experiment that they were doing, which naturally, again, she's not understanding that she needs to complete this and be patient along the ride, because now we're 5-6 weeks in. She's just like, I'm over this at this point. So anyway, long story short, although this is really not that short, but again, I'm trying to give you guys as much detail as possible. Upon completion of this, the last step is for her to, for the board to meet along, so the board includes a member of administration, which was the assistant principal that initially told me it couldn't happen, her current kindergarten teacher, her potential 1st grade teacher, the gifted specialist, and myself. And I had her grandmother on the call as well, because she also played a large part in you know, her advanced abilities, because she also helped her teach her how to read too during these 6 months that we've been under quarantine. Shout out to my mother, I love you. Now, so we had that meeting, and in that meeting, they kind of shared all of the testing scores, and they did recommend her for 1st grade. She is now in a 1st grade class in the high performing math and reading groups. I am laying low right now because she's been through a lot of testing. She is going to be retested for the gifted program in February, but I will be pushing for her to be in pullouts by I would say that March, April time, when she's got herself fully acclimated in 1st grade, because I do feel like she needs to be in a medium or high group in the 2nd grade, because she's reading on a much higher level than the 1st graders. So that's to be continued. So that's where we are right now. You know, she's currently in 1st grade. She's high performing math and reading. No, she's not in the gifted program. She missed it by 4 percentage points. But, you know, she's going to be tested again along with her entire class, because her class just happens to be tested in February. So she lucked out to be able to be tested again, because typically for gifted programs, you get tested once every other year. I do think she's going to get into it. I think that, you know, again, if you hear all the tests she went through, by that point, she was about 4 weeks into testing. She didn't test well, and I'm not surprised, because it was a lot for her. So let's see where that is. And even if she doesn't get into the gifted program, that's fine. Really, I'm more so pushing for her to be in the high performing group in the 2nd grade level. So to be continued on that. I'm excited. I'm really happy that she is where she needs to be, because she's a lot less frustrated. I did see that when she started in kindergarten, a lot of her behaviors started to regress instead of progress, because she's with kids who are not used to being in a structured environment. She started almost like doing a lot of these behaviors that like pre-kindergarten and kindergarten was doing, and she should be on a first grade level at this point. And I've seen a huge shift in just a few weeks that she's been in first grade, that you know, her behavior has been more so of a first grader, and going back to being able to be independent in doing things, and not needing to get this amount of attention when we're doing our homeschooling at home. I'm sure a lot of you guys are wondering, well, do I still homeschool at home? Yes, I do. I homeschool her at home every single day. She gets work. It's usually about 30 to 45 minutes of work. It's not a long time, but that's because she needs to work back up to being fully independent, because I think she did regress by being in kindergarten for those 4 months or so, because she was very dependent on the teacher, and you know, saw that those kids that were having those exhibiting bad behaviors or you know, less mature behaviors than she was getting more attention. So of course she adapted to that type of behavior. So as we're working to getting back to where she was prior to being left back, if you will, now we are working on homeschooling her, and she gets work pretty much every single day, and she loves it. And I do use that to be able to manage behaviors at home as well, because I'm constantly pushing her, and she's constantly wanting to learn more and more and more. And yes, I don't teach her on the same, or rather no, I don't teach her on the same level as her first grade teacher. I'm teaching above. So right now at school, she is doing addition, but they're doing like 1-digit addition. She's doing 3-digit addition at home with regrouping, and she's also doing multiplication as well. So we're constantly pushing the rigor at home. It works for us. It's something that she loves. If it gets to a point where she does not want to do it anymore, I don't want to make it a chore. I don't want to use it as a source of behavior management as well, like almost like a consequence so you get more homework. No, this is a positive environment that I try to exhibit at home when it comes to, or create at home when it comes to her schoolwork. If you guys have any questions, please don't forget, go on Instagram, make sure you DM me. A lot of people ask me questions about how I handled getting her to this level. I'm more than happy to answer. Just remember, every child is different, but I'm more than happy to give you any tips that I do have. I appreciate you guys for staying with us until the end. Again, follow us on Instagram. We also have a Facebook page, so make sure you follow us on both. I'm there to answer questions. Comment below if you have any questions on what we talked about today. Comment below if you thought this process was just crazy, because I felt like after all of this, she should have been getting into Spelman. I mean, I'm just saying, I felt like it was a lot. But she's happy. She's much happier in first grade. I'm happy for her, because I just think it's where she needs to be for now, to be continued on that. But I appreciate you guys for listening. I know this is a little bit of a story time, if you will, but I know that some of you guys ask me all the time about, you know, teaching tips and stuff like that since we did the back to school series. So I just wanted to share this update with you guys. I appreciate you for watching, and as always, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, like, comment, and subscribe on this video. We love you guys for watching. Until next time.